For those who want to see more examples, here are a few more examples of this process. So I'm going to go ahead and do part A is domain and range. I'll do it this way: B or intercept, C, and then D. Once again, do whatever order you want, but I'm going to indicate where my vertical asymptotes are because it's going to help me with range, domain, and also our whole, because that's also going to help me with my domain. So we've got vertical asymptotes at x equals -4 and 0, so you can have multiple. And then you're going to have a whole at 1, roughly -1. I'm just going to say 1, -1. It's a little off, but close enough. So that means our range, you're just going to take all those x values. Your domain, I keep saying that. Domain will be all those x values. So x can't be -4, 0, or 1. Let's go to horizontal asymptote and vertical asymptote. This one's horizontal because these arrows seem to flatline a bit. So it's just going to go horizontally right here. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's at y equals 0. And then once again, range isn't always cut and dry like the domain is. You have to think about range a bit. So if you look at the range for this problem, the only place where there's no gaps anywhere because there are arrows that go on and on forever. And actually notice how this middle section crosses through the asymptote. That means your range is actually all the way from -infinity to +infinity. Never stops, never has any breaks or anything. And then intercepts, we've got a few. Let me take that out there. So the few being roughly right here. We've got -3, 0. And I lied, just 1. There are no more than 1. I know there can't be a y-intercept because there's a vertical asymptote on the y-axis, and you never ever cross through vertical asymptotes. However, if you notice, you can cross through the horizontal asymptotes. Those are just guidelines more than actual rules. Name that movie. All right, so we got domain. We've got range. We're going to find our intercepts, and so on. So let's do this next one. So vertical asymptote, boom. We've got one right there and another one right here. I just kind of center between those. So x equals -3 and x equals 0. I'll just write 0, which means our domain, it's always nice on the domain, can't be -3 or 0. Range, oops, I don't know what I just did. There we go. Our range, I'll move that over. We'll get with the horizontal or oblique. So this is another horizontal asymptote. Now, this one's a little tricky because you're actually trying to center between these two to figure out where they're going, where they're both approaching ultimately. And to me, you might be able to say like 0.5, you might say 0. I'm going to go ahead and say 0. It's not super obvious, but it is okay to actually come back up and then go start. So you'll see something, I'll make it more exaggerated, where it looks like this, where it starts coming back and approaching the line again later. So it doesn't always have to be strictly above or below, because remember, you can cross through. So range looks like the only place we have a gap is right in this section. And so I'm going to say we are, and I'm going to do interval notation. So we've got -infinity roughly to, I'll say like 0.7. You could say 0.5. Now it's getting close to 0.7, but not touching. That's what I'm going to say. This other one is touching right at 3, so I'll say from 3 to infinity. That's a parenthesis. This is a bracket. And then intercepts. Let me clean up this graph so I can read it better. So we've got -4, 0. Once again, there's a vertical asymptote on the y-axis, so no y-intercept. And then we've got 4, 0. Let's do one more. I mean, we could do 2, but let's do one more where there's a oblique asymptote. And I'm actually just going to do just the domain and range. I don't think people will need help. So vertical asymptote, I'll just show you what they are. They're right here. So one's at -3, one's at 2, which means x can't be -3 or 2. But I mostly wanted to do range and our letter D oblique asymptote, since we haven't done a few of those. So oblique, you're just kind of, it's nice to have like a ruler or something, a straight edge. In fact, let me see if I can get this to work. So I get my little straight edge, and I just get it really close to both of those. And then I draw a line going straight through here. Perfect. And so it looks like it's going through 0. So remember it's y equals mx plus b. I'll just write it underneath. There we go. So the answer would be, there's no b. So we've got to find our slope, and it looks like it's just going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So that's boring. So it's just a y equals x. Now for the range, we're trying to see if there's anywhere where there's like any gap or anything like that. And because this middle graph is going on forever from -infinity to infinity, the whole thing is considered -infinity to infinity, even though these little graphs down over here are not. But otherwise, I think you guys are good with intercepts, I'm assuming, and the others. So best of luck.